After discovering my wife's affair and 5 years of her draining me, our marriage continued for another 5 years. During those 5 years, we had a daughter, Momo. Just when everyone thought we would continue living like this, I filed for divorce. Shin's face was full of disbelief. "Aren't we doing well?" I snorted and took out the divorce agreement. In the past 8 years, I had used her resources to multiply my assets several thousand times, converting to a value of over 10 billion stocks or cash. After the divorce, 5 years ago, my wife was involved in a shocking scandal. A well-known businessman and his white moonlight were meeting secretly. Late at night, the post included several photos, intimate bed photos of her in her white moonlight. The next day, the news spread throughout Jing City. Such a huge scandal caused the company's stock to fluctuate. It lost billions. That day, the company held an emergency shareholders meeting and gave a 3-day deadline to eliminate the impact of this incident on the company. Otherwise, my wife's position as president would be removed that afternoon. I accompanied my wife to the press conference. At the press conference, I strongly supported her to help her through the difficult time. People praised me for being generous, free-spirited, and resilient. Others mocked me for being a kept man, a cuckoo, a wimp who could only swallow his pride. I smiled and never paid attention to how the outside world judged me. After the storm subsided, she seemed genuinely repentant and actively returned to the family. She brought me gifts every day, spent time with me hiking and watching the sunrise, and tried different ways to make me happy. But I had already seen through this woman's true nature and coldly played. Along with her performance for years of ordinary time passed, or perhaps I was kept in the dark for another 4 years. A year ago, she hired a young driver. I knew him. He was Gucci Chung, my wife's classmate from school who had recently divorced. Her heart changed again, and she started a life outside of our home with Gung. Since then, Momo rarely saw her mother once a week, which I was happy to see. I was waiting for the right opportunity. In fact, Shin Sen now had plenty of time. She was a person. With a great talent for investment at the young age of 30, she had built up an inexhaustible fortune from scratch at her peak. She resigned from her company position and became a high independent investor. I often told Momo, "Mom is very busy." He nodded in confusion. She was indeed very busy. Busy accompanying Gu Chong to look at houses. Busy buying furniture. Busy finding a school and handling enrollment for her daughter. She even worried that the little girl would be bullied at school, so she thoughtfully gave each teacher a gift bag worth 100,000 and sent her personal lawyer to help him with his divorce case. Gu Chung, who should have been down and out, was living a prosperous life because of Shinin's support. Times have changed. Now Shinin is no longer afraid of scandals. She enjoys the most willful and free time after her success. In fact, for couples with a net worth of tens of billions like us, it's common to have affairs outside of marriage, but it would never lead to divorce. So the moment I brought up divorce, she froze for a moment, then frowned. "Are you jealous of Gung? He's in trouble now, and we're not short of this little bit of money. But besides, he helped me a lot back in school. Can you have a bit more perspective? All right? All right?" I raised my hand to interrupt. It's undeniable that over the years, both in her career and in our family, she has always been far stronger than me. That's why I've always gone along with her, since I couldn't have earned the status we have today with my own abilities. But as time went on, she got into the habit of criticizing me over everything. If I didn't interrupt her, she would definitely use the excuse of helping a classmate to thoroughly tear me down. I saw the love letter in the safe. She froze again, her face turning. "Ugly. You opened my safe on Momo's first birthday. You asked me to get a document for you. It was also on that day that she took 100 million from her premarital assets and added it to our marital property, becoming my first bucket of gold to enter the investment circle." Her expression relaxed a bit, but she still looked a little flustered. That was just something from when we were young. "It's long gone. If there was anything between us, would I have married you?" After saying this, her confidence returned. "A little. We didn't get together back then, and now we have a child. It's even more impossible. Don't make something out of nothing. I've seen this expression on her face for 8 years every time. There's a disagreement she always puts on this superior attitude, freely belittling me. Now I don't want to endure it anymore. Shinin, you don't need to explain anything to me. Think about how you'll explain it to Momo. She looked at me wearily. What did you tell her? Do I even need to say anything? Think. About your actions this past year. She thought I was referring to the amount of time she spent with Gooing this year and immediately became angry. I told you there's nothing between me and him. Like you think I'm too lazy to expose the little mess between you and him. This past year, Momo was hospitalized, once got sick 3 times, and was bullied at school for half a year. Did you ever show up? Oh, right. You did show up once to help the bully. Your own daughter. Shinin was stunned. A flash of guilt in her eyes, followed by an angry accusation. How could I possibly help someone bully my own daughter? There has to be a limit to your lies. The mockery on my face deepened half a year ago. You bribed a school teacher to expel a student. You remember that? Of course I remember, wasn't it? She seemed to realize something and her face suddenly turned ugly. Half a year ago, a school teacher suddenly called saying that her daughter had gotten into a fight at school. This daughter was Guo, Chane's daughter. For the past 6 months, she had brought Gu Chang's daughter to school countless times, and the little girl always sweetly called her mom. She had never refused this, and even felt a secret joy in her heart. The school teachers also regarded them as a real mother and daughter 3 months after Guang's daughter came to school. I also transferred my daughter over when Gu Chang's daughter saw the photo of Emo, and on Ms. School Bag they started arguing. Both said that Shinny was their mother, and they ended up fighting. Finally, the school called Shinin and asked indirectly, "Miss Gu, how many daughters do you have?" When she received the call, Shinin was busy on a date with Gu Chong and even found a call baffling. "I only have one daughter, named Ji Ru." In her mind, her daughter should be at her grandmother's house hundreds of miles away, seeing her expression. I knew she had already get when you were on the phone. Emma MOA was listening nearby when she heard you say that your daughter's name was Guru. She lowered her head, took my hand, and said, "Dad, let's go." Shinin was heartbroken after hearing this, but she never reflected on herself and only took it out on me. MMO is still young and can't defend herself. You're a grown-up, can't. On the school's family roster, you instructed them not to fill in your information, but you personally filled in Guru's rare Oster, and your name is in the mother's column. Her face was pale. She opened her mouth, but still couldn't say anything to refute. Seemingly aware of her recent coldness towards her daughter, her tone became much better for once. I remember Emma was studying at her grandmother's. Why didn't you tell me about MOS transfer? I asked you and you said to let me make the decision. On such trivial matters, Shinin finally lowered her arrogant head. You've been handling Miss Affairs. If you find it difficult, you can call me. Seemingly aware of the powerlessness of this sentence, her voice became lower and lower. I sneered and didn't bother to refute. I called her countless times this past year after Shinin gave birth to M. She had barely taken care of in less life in these years. Her daughter was also very sensible. She knew that her mother was very busy, and even though she missed her very much, she rarely disturbed her. But when she saw her mother running around and taking care of everything for this girl named Guru, the grievances that had accumulated over the years could no longer be suppressed in the past 6 months. Daughter and I have run into your family of 3 countless times half a year ago when you drove to school to pick up Guru. It was the same day that Mo was expelled. At that time, M was standing right behind you watching Guru call you mom. And then you affectionately held her in your arms when you went to the amusement park. We were outside. When you booked the entire floor of the hospital for Guru's treatment. We were being driven out of the ward by your bodyguards. There are many more things like this. Do I need to tell you each and every one of them? Every time I mentioned something, her face became uglier, and finally her always upright spine bit. You've never done these things for Emo. You've rarely even attended Emo's birthdays. You're always so busy. The conversation that day ended on a sour note, but it successfully made her feel guilty, putting me in a position of strength. All my arrangements had come to fruition, and I thought it was time to put the divorce on the agenda. Affection cannot withstand the test of time, and guilt should be used wisely. I left Momo behind and moved out. Shinin didn't try to stop me. She thought I was just venting my dissatisfaction and would come back after a while later while I was traveling. I heard news about them again from a friend Shinin had canceled. All her social engagements to spend time with Momo, vowing to make up for all the lost years back at the hotel that night. I received a call from Momo Dad. That bad guy and his dad came to our house today. Guru cried and apologized to me, Mom even. Made me call his dad Uncle. Do you like his dad? He's very handsome, and he has a nice smile, but I just don't like him. Then don't like him. You don't have to force yourself. When Momo grows up, she will know how much leverage she truly has. I returned to the capital. When the person I had been waiting for finally returned, Lawyer Jiang was a childhood friend of mine. When he first heard that I wanted a divorce, he was so shocked that he spilled his coffee all over the floor. Are you kidding me? 5 years ago, something huge happened and you didn't get divorced when you had no ties, no burdens, no kids. Now that the child is so big, you want a divorce. Ignoring his surprised expression, I lit a cigarette and took a deep drag. What would I have gotten if I divorced her back then? Lawyer John was stunned. He knew my real situation at the time. My family was ordinary. My parents were ordinary workers, and the only thing I had going for me was my graduation from a prestigious university at that time. Shinin was already well known in the financial world. After that incident, I became the laughing stock of the family. My parents forced me to get a divorce or they would cut ties with me. Shinin was the wife I chose once the move is made. There is no regret, I believe, in my own judgment, and I would not allow myself to end up so miserably from the moment I helped her suppress that incident. She was no longer my wife, but my partner. As a rising star in the financial world, her prenuptial agreement was completely watertight. How much could I have gotten if I divorced her? Then $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, $50 million. Lawyer Jiang clicked his tongue. Isn't that enough? You couldn't spend it all in a lifetime? Not enough. What's that? Amount of money she could earn it back with a single investment. Lawyer Jiang sighed and completely agreed with my words. It has to be said that Shinin has a keen eye for investment, and the assets she has earned in recent years are unimaginably large. I don't recommend you get a divorce. Her current assets are so large that you can't even imagine you endured it 5 years ago. There's no need to give up this piece of meat to someone else for the sake of a moment of anger. I stubbed out the cigarette in my hand forcefully in the ashtray. Cutting losses at a low point and starting over is called being impulsive. Harvesting at a high point and leaving the market with a full pot is not called being impulsive. But what about Momo? You shouldn't have brought her into this world. If you had such thoughts, I smiled. There are no accidents in my life, and Momo is no exception. Without Momo, how could Shinin trust me so much without Momo? She might have appreciated my thoughtfulness and generosity, but she would never have considered me one of her own. What relationship in this world could be stronger than blood ties? Lawyer Jiang looked at me deeply. Actually, you'd be better suited as a lawyer. This is too unfair to Momo. How so? She's my only child, and Shinsen too. She will receive all our love. So you already had this plan when she had her tubes tied back then. After all, Shinin had her tubes tied in a high-profile manner after giving birth to Momo, proving her love from me to the world. It caused quite a stir at the time. I just realized how ruthless you are at this moment. A family of 3 walked by the window. I stared blankly at their happy faces, undeniably. We also had a period of happiness in countless nights. I held Momo in my arms and constantly asked myself, maybe I should just let it go and live a good life, but I could never get over that hurdle in my heart. Do you think with her intelligence she weighed things even more when cheated? Lawyer Jiang looked at me with a complicated expression, his lips moving slightly, but he ultimately swallowed his words. It was something she had weighed, and that kind of weighing was something I could never forgive for the rest of my life, leaving the cafe. It was already late, at night, and I thought it was time to meet Guang. The phone connected. "Bro, do you have time to meet, brother? About what happened with Xia Ru?" I only found out later, and I made Xia Ru apologize afterwards. My calling him bro was dripping with sarcasm. He couldn't have missed it, but he still pretended nothing was wrong, deliberately trying to make small talk. "I wouldn't mind such a small thing. Then what do you want to talk about?" Guang suddenly gasped, as if remembering something. "Back then it wasn't me who instigated your parents to disown you. Back then, my parents had arranged a childhood engagement for me later because of Xin. I had a huge falling out with my family, if I remember correctly. Gu Chang's secret crush at the time was my betrothed. Girlfriend, don't put on that disgusting act song. Huayan told me about what happened back then. But if you call me big brother, I might be able to help you get back into the family." This sentence of mine seemed to hit a nerve. The breathing on the other end of the phone became noticeably erratic. Gu Chang's mother was a mistress. His father cared deeply about his reputation and had never acknowledged Gu Chang's existence for over 20 years, even secretly trying to make him and his mother disappear. Rumor has it that mother died at his father's hands. It seems Mr. Gu truly inherited his mother's talents, enjoying being a mistress and acting like a green tea at the same time. Perhaps it was because Gu Cheng mentioned my parents, but my words became more intense enough. "Chino, you're going too far." A familiar voice sounded shunny late at night. She was actually Bi Guang's side. "Then what about Momo? You're a parent yourself. How can you insult someone else's parents like that? I think you need to learn a lesson about family responsibility." I suppressed my anger, my fingers turning blue from the force. From what position are you questioning me as a mother? And more importantly, as your wife, hearing this, I could no longer contain my rage, and started yelling. "As a wife, you would drop on your husband's conversation with his lover and stay by his lover's side late at night, supporting him as a mother. Have you ever fulfilled your responsibilities as a mother, as a daughter? What have you done in all these years to make your parents or my parents happy enough?" Even though I knew Gu Cheng was deliberately provoking me, I couldn't help but argue with her on the phone. In the end, I threw my phone into the air and smashed it to pieces. The cold night wind brought back some of my sanity. Good Shinin won't agree to a divorce easily. This incident is just the breakthrough I need. I hurried back home and saw Momo curled up on the sofa, fast asleep. My eyes flashed with heartache. I stayed by Momo's side and fell asleep the next day. After dropping Momo off at school and returning home, Shinin was sitting on the sofa looking haggard. It seemed she hadn't slept all night. I didn't waste any words, took out the divorce agreement, and placed it in front of her. "Let's get a divorce." Her eyes were bloodshot and her voice was, "Horse Chino, don't be like this." Her voice softened. "Are we doing well?" "Doing well. I'm sorry to have given you that illusion." "What do you mean? What happened 5 years ago is in the past, isn't it? If it's because of Guo Chong?" I admit I was emotional last night and I apologize. My tone remained flat. I gestured for her to look at the divorce agreement. "If there are no problems, sign it. Last night I wanted to help you reconcile with your family because of me. You and your father have been arranged for years. I was discussing solutions with Gu Chong. Perhaps the sarcasm on my face was too obvious. Her expression turned ugly. Shinin, what does that have to do with me divorcing you?" Thinking of the grievances I had suffered in my family's lack of understanding over the years, my eyes reened and I spoke each word with force. "You promised you wouldn't betray me again. But now you've not only hurt me, you've also hurt Momo, and you even put on this savior act expecting us to be grateful to you, Chimo." I interrupted her explanation. "There's no need, do you remember what you promised me 5 years ago when I agreed to help you?" I threw out my last resort staring into her eyes, forcing her to remember that day. At that time, she knelt before me begging. I said, If one day I still can't let it go, please set me free." At that time, her face was full of remorse and she tightly grasped my hand. "It won't happen, Chimo. I won't make that mistake again. I'll live a good life with you." She said it over and over again. An unnatural expression appeared on Shun's face. "Chanim Mo, do we really have to go this far? I knew she wouldn't bow down to me. Her pride wouldn't allow her to cling to me, even if you end up with nothing after the divorce." Shin's voice was cold with a hint of a threat. Yes. Without hesitation, my answer was decisive. Her face flashed with astonishment, then anger, and she tore the divorce agreement on the table. "To shreds, I'll have someone draft a new divorce agreement. Momo will stay with me. As for the rest, don't worry, I won't shortchange you." Another hour passed, and the negotiations ended. I left the villa with red eyes. Lawyer Jiang, who was waiting outside, saw me come out and hurried over. "How did it go?" I showed my white teeth. "It's done." I got in the car and closed my eyes wearily. Negotiating a divorce with a woman as shrewd as Shun. Emotional arguments are your best weapon. A rational discussion gives you not the slightest chance of winning, and I am satisfied with my performance. While I waited for Shun to send the divorce agreement, I did two things. First, I donated 10 million yuan to Momo's current school to build a library. On the day of the donation, the school principal, in order to thank me, held a special presentation at the school, which Shinny also attended. The principal thanked us as a couple for our contribution in front of all the teachers and students, and also asked Momo to speak on stage as a student representative. Momo was poised and eloquent on stage, and her speech was very impressive, winning applause from the audience. Both Shinsen and I were proud of her. The second thing I did was go back to my hometown. The moment I opened the door, I realized they had aged a lot, and their hair had turned much whiter. "Dad, Mom, I'm back." They hugged me tightly, and we didn't speak for a long time. I saw Gowing again in a coffee shop. "Dad, you're bad. You said that in a few months, Mom Shun would be my real mom. Why is a Mom Shun talking to me now? My classmates are all calling me a liar, guru." A's face was covered in scratches, and she was crying her heart out. I took my coffee and sat down at the best spot, leisurely watching the scene unfold. At this moment, Gu Chung also saw me. His face was ugly, but he didn't dare to get angry without Shinsen to back him up. He was just an ordinary person who had been kicked out. "Do you know why I ignored you this past year, no matter how you mock me?" He looked at me in shock, a trace of fear flashing in his eyes. Because of Shun, a woman who has made mistakes. What face does she have this past year? I hadn't taken any action, but my war with her had already begun. Gu Chong provoked me in secret, hoping that I would argue with her, slowly eroding our feelings, while he secretly wormed his way into her heart. It was the right move. All the mistresses who try to climb the ladder do this, understanding, consider it gentle waiting for the opportunity to take over. But how could I let him have his way? I will get a divorce, but Shin will definitely not marry you. Do you know why I looked at his bloodshot eyes, feeling exceptionally pleased? Before you even came into the picture, I'd already pinned the blame for destroying our marriage on you. I'm leaving, and you'll bear the blame. Gu Chang's face was ashen, trembling with anger, but he didn't dare to vent. He hadn't expected me to be so calculating, completely going against the norm. 5 years ago, the incident with his first love had already created an irreparable crack in our love. Now Gu Chang's appearance was timely. I was simply going with the flow. I just wonder if Gu Chung has the ability to handle the mess I've left behind after I leave. I also have to thank you for your cooperation. Guo Chong exploded in anger, pointing at me accusingly. You want a divorce just because of that phone call? He certainly knew the consequences of being hated by Shin. His face was ashen, and he no longer had his usual imposing manner. Ring, 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 I received a call from Lawyer Jean. He was excited on the phone, saying I've received Shin-Si's divorce agreement. I downed the coffee in my cup, dusted myself off, and turned to leave. I arrived at the law firm. I looked at the divorce agreement in surprise. Shin wanted custody of Momo and the rest of the property. Whether prenuptial or acquired during the marriage he gave me a majority. Therefore, the sensation caused by our divorce was far beyond. My imagination lawyer Jiang leaned on the table, counting the long string of numbers, longer than an ID number, more than a dozen times. Brother, you're a rich man. Now think about how many people looked down on you back then, and 5 years later you've made a beautiful comeback. Now not only in the financial and entertainment circles, but even in the social news. You have a huge presence. You're famous all over the country. Now I smiled, non-committal. The next day I woke up and opened my phone to several news notifications. In ancient times there was King Gojin of Yu, and today there is Chuno of Jing City. I skimmed through the news, which was relatively objective, neither praising nor criticizing, mixing truth and falsehood, describing my experiences. With Shin Cini over the years, suddenly in the middle of the news a few large, bold words popped up. A gentleman's revenge is never too late, even after 10 years, but Shano only took 5. A light-hearted yet heavy sentence. The sudden influx of immense wealth didn't change my life. Whenever I had time, I would have meals with Momo, but Shinin was always there. We parted amicably, without arguments after the divorce. Shinin as a mother was more present than before, and Momo was not affected. I didn't fight her for custody of Momo. With her mother, she would never lose her father. But with me, I couldn't guarantee whether the capricious Shinin would still love her. Moreover, with Shin's circle connections and influence, Momo would receive a better education with her. The future holds many variables and uncertainties, but I know that the more Shinin invests in Momo, the deeper their bond will become. At dinner, Shinin invited me to stay. I shook my head. Momo is strong. She will have to get used to life without her father, sooner or later. 2 months later, after finishing dinner with friends, I arrived at the parking lot and encountered an unexpected person, Song Wayun. This was the first time in all these years that I had met her privately. In the past, at events we would avoid suspicion at most, exchanging only a few seconds of eye contact. She was wearing a light blue dress and walked towards me gracefully. Time had not left a trace on her face. She was still the same confident and beautiful woman from many years ago. Her gaze fell on my face with a hint of tenderness. "Chino, you've changed a lot." I nodded. "You're still the same as always. There are many rumors about you lately." I was slightly taken aback. I didn't think Miss Song was a person who liked gossip. She leaned against my car, her legs slightly crossed. "Are you satisfied with this outcome?" I lowered my head and thought for a moment. This is the best situation I could have strived for. She seemed surprised by my words, and a thoughtful expression appeared on her face. "You've suffered a lot over the years. I didn't expect such words to come from Miss Song back then. If we had been together, things might have been different." I chuckled. "Aren't there plenty of stories where childhood sweethearts lose out to someone who appears out of the blue? Back then, it wasn't just Go Chung between us." My words didn't embarrass her. She raised her head, her tone melancholic, revealing a faint sadness. "People are strange, aren't they? They always marry someone they don't love and then spend their lives remembering the one they truly loved. Chino, you didn't really fall in love with Shunsai, did you? I watched all the videos of you two attending balls in the videos. Your eyes were only on her, full of admiration and indulgence. Chimo, you were once captivated by her charm. Everyone says that the child was your means of scheming against Shinny. But I know you're not that kind of person. I believe that the child was once the salvation of your marriage. But she let you down." My fingernails dug deep into my flesh, but I felt no pain. "I believe that the child was once the salvation of your marriage, but she let you down." She stared into my eyes, and seeing that I remained silent for a long time, she didn't get angry. Finally, she nodded gently at me and drove away Song Wei. Shen was never a meddling person, but today I felt her tenderness, perhaps. She still held a torch for me. Perhaps she really did love me. Half a year later, I brought my parents to the capital during these 6 months. Sheenan was always with Momo. They often appeared in major news headlines. She took Momo skiing, archery, traveling, boating, golfing, and so on. She also personally taught Momo piano, singing, and dancing. Everyone praised her as a good mother, as I expected. If you want to give your child the best of everything, there's no limit to how much you can invest. It's a bottomless pit. It just depends on how much she's willing to give. Sheenan, dressed in matching mother-daughter outfits, stood at the airport. The moment we came out, Momo quickly rushed into my arms. Shin's intentions to reconcile became increasingly obvious. At a celebratory banquet, people mentioned Shinsen again. Now she had more feminine charm, like a girl in love. If she didn't love me, how could she have given me so much of her assets? A friend next to me gossiped. Is there still a chance for reconciliation? Who knows about the future right now? She's a good mother. If you want the horse to run, you have to give it some grass for Momo's sake. I wouldn't begrudge a few nice words over time. Even Momo was won over at a business gathering. A waiter came running. Over, Mr. Chun. There are people outside claiming to be your wife and child waiting for you. Should I bring them in? The people around me smiled knowingly. The waiter was probably new and didn't recognize Shinsen. In fact, this wasn't the first or second time she had done this with her status. She didn't need to ask to enter this kind of venue. The organizers would want to invite her, but couldn't. I sighed and walked outside. It was snowing lightly outside. The mother and daughter were happily building a snowman. Seeing me come out, Momo excitedly ran towards me, leaped lightly, and clung to me. Sheenan also conveniently draped the coat in her hand over my shoulders. I drove the two of them home. Momo sat in the back chattering about recent fun events, while Sheenan and I listened quietly in the front after putting Momo to sleep. I called Sheenan to the living room. Sheenan, you've already affected my life. I heard that song. Wei-in will also be attending tonight. So what? My tone was slightly annoyed. This Sheenan was somewhat unreasonable. She hugged me. I instinctively wanted to push her away, but she raised her eyebrows, gesturing towards Momo's room. I lowered my voice and scolded, "Let go." Not only did she not let go, but she held me even tighter. Her voice carrying a hint of pleading. What do I have to do for you to get back together with me after nearly a year of single life? I was very comfortable and free. This was the life I had dreamed of. I didn't need to please anyone. I didn't need to worry about her lying in another man's bed, and I didn't need to accept anyone's criticism. I reminded her again. We are divorced. Do you avoid me that much? I stared into her eyes, remaining silent for a long time. She felt a little guilty and soft, coaxed me. If you like your current life, I'll give you all my assets and I'll be a full-time housewife enough. I interrupted her. Why should I believe you again, even if you act perfectly? Now I don't believe you, especially since you're a repeat offender. Sheenan was speechless after my rebuke every time we talked about getting back together. It ended in a quarrel. I could see her efforts, but it was better to be cold-blooded to others than to myself. I wouldn't give her another chance to hurt me. I thought I had made it very clear. But I didn't expect Shin to have such a special obsession with remarriage. Even lawyer Jiang and my parents were won over by her 3 years later. At this moment, under the strong urging of my parents, Sheenan was already living in my house permanently. She had completely turned into a shameless rogue without any regard for her image. Chino opened the door. I just want to warm your bed. Her tone was as ambiguous as it could be. She had completely let go of everything and was willing to be my appendage. The outside world was also used to it. 6 years later, we still lived our own lives, but there were still no others around us. The rumors about whether we would remar or not were also fiercely debated by the outside world. Remar. I smiled. Marriage has never been a necessity of life.